Katrina20, the storm that changed everything.
Sponsored by Husband Roofing and Contracting. When a storm strikes, trust Husband Roofing and Contracting. We don't just build roofs, we build communities. For a roof that lasts, your roof deserves a good husband.
Are coming over the barriers.
August 29, 2005. A day South Mississippi will never forget.
Well, just imagine right now we have everything and all of a sudden, within hours, it's gone.
Hurricane Katrina, a massive Category 5 storm at its height, leaving a trail of destruction across the state.
We never dreamed it would be up here like this and all the way up on the interstate.
Homes, businesses, and historical sites reduced to just a memory, claiming hundreds of lives on the coast alone. As the winds calmed and the water receded, communities emerged as a symbol of hope and resiliency.
The neighbors coming together. I mean, you would go out and see all these neighbors who've never even met before eating together.
Now, 20 years later, the storm serving as a reminder of how the worst of nature can bring out the best in humanity. One of the most well-known images in the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina is the Biloxi Lighthouse. It's become a beacon of hope for the coastal community. The structure, built in 1848, even withstanding the nearly 30-foot storm surge brought on by Katrina. After the storm, an American flag flew from the battered lighthouse. One of the biggest challenges from Hurricane Katrina came when the lights went out. Thousands were without power days after the storm, but crews along the coast worked tirelessly to restore it. Will Polston met with some of the workers on the front lines during the recovery efforts.
As Hurricane Katrina grew stronger and approached Mississippi, power companies throughout the coast were preparing for the worst. Though they had been through hurricane seasons every year, this one was different.
I think everybody before Hurricane Katrina thought they had a perfect plan, and we all realized that our plan was really woefully inept for that size of storm.
When Katrina's winds had finally stopped, the aftermath was something that most linemen had never seen before.
When I saw the first devastation, I can remember my parents talking about what they went through for Camille, and I thought, this is my Camille.
South Mississippi had gone dark. Thousands of power poles snapped, miles of lines down, tangled wires everywhere. But there was no time to dwell on destruction.
But if you think about all the devastation, you're not going to get anywhere. You focus on what can we do immediately to start making a difference.
Eventually it comes down to one thing, and that one thing is the only thing we as line workers know how to do, and that's get the power back on.
South Mississippi linemen and tens of thousands more from power companies across the country worked tirelessly to restore power to every home and business that could receive power in just 19 days, a feat few thought possible.
That is one of the most adrenaline rushes that you can get, is when the lights come on and people are actually standing out waving at you and just giving you thumbs up.
And you hear a few cheers in the background, and the guys that were here working, we reflect on that. It made us work a little bit harder.
20 years later, Hurricane Katrina remains unprecedented. It's had lasting impacts on millions, including the power companies. For them, it's a story of resilience and the importance of sharing the story with every lineman who joins the team.
If we look down the road 10 years, most of us that were here during Katrina, we will be retired. So it's important that we pass along that knowledge so that the next group of employees are prepared.
I believe that we have a much better plan now, and that our employees know that, hey, I've been through that before. I've been through that, and we can rebuild again.
The Hurricane Katrina Memorial in Biloxi is a tribute to those who lost their lives in the storm. Former Governor Haley Barbour got his first look at the catastrophic damage from the sky on board a National Guard helicopter. And in the days following, Barbour declared Mississippians would hitch up our britches and rebuild what Katrina destroyed. Well, 20 years later, Barbour's statement is becoming more and more true.
It looked like the hand of God had wiped away the coast, like a
nuclear weapon had been dropped into sound.
From the moment Haley Barber first saw the widespread destruction, Hurricane Katrina defined his time as governor.
I'm on hurricane duty.
His duty meant leading a recovery effort that included working with the federal government to secure more than $24 billion in aid to the state. Today, the view over the coast is entirely different from what Barber first saw on August 30th, 2005.
I said then that the coast was going to come back bigger and better than ever, and it has.
But the road to where we are now, for many, seemed impossible to navigate.
The storm surge has been much bigger than anything ever before. The result has been, in some cases, people being trapped in their homes, trapped in other buildings.
Facing tragedy, South Mississippians answered Barber's call, going to work, and also help poured in from across the nation.
It brought out the best in us. I said then it was fitting that the worst disaster in American history would bring out the most volunteerism, the most giving, the most charity, and it did. We had almost 1 million people who came here and volunteered to work in the first 5 years after the storm, 600,000 in the first year, and they came from all over the country.
2.5 years after the storm, during Barber's second inaugural address, he made it clear the coast was on the rebound.
This worst natural disaster in the history of our country revealed the spirit and character of the people of Mississippi.
Despite Katrina destroying more than 60,000 homes on the coast, residents didn't abandon their communities and returned as soon as they could.
In 3 years, the coast counties had the population back to what it was when the storm hit. New Orleans still does.
Now the example of resilience lives on.
Our response to Katrina, particularly of the people of Mississippi and the way they were strong, resilient, self-reliant people, did more to improve Mississippi's image than anything in my lifetime.
Nowhere else is the coast's recovery on display more than here in thriving downtown Bay St. Louis. But as Raylan Ladner shows us, the road to what we see today seemed impossible in the hours after the storm made landfall just a few miles from here in Waveland.
This is where the police department used to be. This tree is where about 19 or 20 of us hung on to until we could get to the building.
Katrina's wind and storm surge erased homes, businesses, and dreams. For many who lived through it, those memories are still painful.
We stayed on the tree from probably 8 till about 4:30 that evening, just hanging on the tree.
Retired Waveland police investigator Trent Boyd remembers the moment when the water came in fast and didn't stop.
It was 12 feet at the police department. It was a strong enough current that it was washing people, you know.
Just down the road in Bay St. Louis, Daniel Murphy had been through hurricanes before. He figured his family's beachfront restaurant would weather the storm.
And of course we had it all fixed up. We had to renovate it and we got it going, and the inside was beautiful. Katrina was coming through. We had several $1,000s of liquor and beer and inventory and food and all that stuff, and then it was funny because all we did was cover the TVs with plastic bags and thinking that if the roof blows off, at least the TV will be fine, and then of course you know what happened from there.
In a matter of hours, years of hard work washed away.
It took us an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours to walk through the rubble just to get to check Dan B's out, and when we got there, it's like we didn't even know where we were at.
It was quite a stressful thing because you're bringing your first child into the world and your world turns upside down.
Stella Lagarder and Michael Eastham still live above their restaurant, the Sycamore House. The Saturday night before Katrina, they had a full house and had no plans to evacuate. But with a new baby, they made a last-minute decision.
We woke up, and I woke up and I went to Michael with our newborn son, and I said, I trust you whatever decision we make, but I don't know how to save his life if the water rises too high. And he said, we're gonna board up and evacuate.
When we came home, the windows had been blown out and all the glass had shot across the room and was in our son's crib.
These two large oaks stood strong, shielding the historic structure. Though the Sycamore House needed plenty of repairs, within a few weeks, LaGarter and Eastham opened on the weekends following Katrina.
It gave a sense of normality, not just to the people, but to us as well.
This gave them the best normalcy. I mean, people were really grateful to come and sit at a white tablecloth meal in the middle of hell.
Today, much of the Katrina nightmare in the Bay has been replaced with vibrant businesses and repaired homes. There are new cottages and condos for the growing tourist destination.
Since Katrina, it's just getting bigger and more touristy, and it's pretty nice. We really can't compare what we had before Katrina to what we have after, but what we have now is a pretty great thing.
It's forever changed the coast. Prior to the storm, people were here, visitors were here.
A huge part of South Mississippi's workforce having to rebuild from the ground up in the aftermath of the storm. The Grand Casino demolished after Hurricane Katrina, just one example of the coast casino industry being forced to move from water to land. The storm's tidal surge physically pushed several casino barges onto Highway 90. Today, the industry is thriving and stronger than ever. The Hard Rock, with its iconic guitar, was one of the casinos destroyed by the storm just 3 days before it was scheduled to open. Tyler Bell takes us inside for more on how one of the staples of the coast gaming industry pushed forward in the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina.
Casino barges, thrown around and turned into million-pound battering rams. Most were gutted, unsalvageable, like the Hard Rock in Biloxi. The casino was years in the making, and less than 3 days from its grand opening when Katrina's roaring winds began to roll through South Mississippi.
All of a sudden, a bunch of police came in and said, "Hey, this storm's going to be way worse. You guys are all out of here right now." We all said, "Well, we can't leave, Said, "We got to have this ready to go in the morning." And they said, "It ain't going to be here in the morning."
Stacked up. Almost seems like it was like a weird dream, and some days I'll be going...
More like a nightmare, Bill. More like a nightmare.
We had just spent $235 million to build the place. Table games were in place. All the memorabilia that you see at the property was installed. Probably 1,300 slot machines. You name it, it was here. And then it wasn't. It was in the water. It was across the street. It was down the block.
After a disaster of this kind, casinos had to decide if it was even worth the risk to come back.
After a while, I mean, you can, feel sorry for yourself for so long, and you've got to, go forward, find a way to go forward.
And so, the Hard Rock began the process all over again, with new legislation also bringing change, relocating casino barges onto land.
I don't think there's any question that had the casinos not come back, we would not be as vibrant a community as we are to that.
The gaming industry injected thousands of jobs back into the local economy, helping the unemployment rate return to pre-Katrina levels. When it was finally time for the Hard Rock to open, thousands came, bubbling with excitement to experience this moment in the aftermath of such tragedy.
I remember the first people coming up the escalator. Everybody there shaking their hands and everything. They're the first people coming into the property now. The employees coming back. I don't think anybody involved could say there was anything less than gratifying.
Although the building was rebuilt, that great guitar never fell. And if you take a moment to look, you'll see it's not the classic Gibson Hard Rock sign. It's a Peavey, created right here in Mississippi.
Residents of the Armed Forces Retirement Home here in Gulfport served their country with courage. When Hurricane Katrina hit, they faced the storm with that same strength. 20 years later, Noah Noble sat down with some of the retirees who watched as their home was invaded by the storm.
I got up and I came down to the first floor and it was flooded. I said, holy mackerel, look at this. I couldn't wrap my mind around this. And then the hurricane started building and building and building. Golly, what's going on?
I happened to be looking down when the door broke open from the surge.
Did you ever expect water to reach that high?
No. No, that was never in my mind.
The lights went out because the generator got flooded out. I knew we were in trouble.
Hurricane Katrina arrived in South Mississippi like an invading army. No regard for life or our way of life. Tales of survival are recalled like a soldier remembering war. But these survivors, these veterans of the Armed Forces Retirement Home, you might be surprised at how they remember it.
Do you remember what it was like leading up to that day in August?
I just thought, another hurricane. I had no idea.
No idea?
No idea.
For Army veteran Claire Dimmler-Smith, reality did not settle in until an omen of devastating storms showed up at the front door.
Jim Cantori showed up. Yeah, there it's gonna hit. We're in trouble.
She wasn't too fazed.
I knew the Lord. I knew I was saved. If the building did come down, I know where I'm going, and I'm with my friends here. I'm with the family here.
U.S. Navy veteran Larry Westbrook, a Biloxi native, watched the water rise from his 5th floor room.
Jim Cantori was in my room, and he says, aren't you scared? I said, no, are you?
Was he?
I guess he was.
When the waves breached the 1st floor of the retirement home, Seabees from the Navy base jumped into action. Army veteran Harry Reiser calls them heroes.
I watched the Seabees hauling all the long-term care people, and they had to carry them all up the stairs, which I thought was a heroic thing for them.
After the storm passed, veterans got the first glimpse of a post-Katrina Mississippi.
What amazed me was they had clothes in the trees, people's clothes in the trees, all over the place, everywhere you looked, they had clothes. And a few places they had bodies.
When that warm August sun set on this destroyed coast, it didn't feel like home anymore for Larry Westbrook.
Everything was black. No lights, nothing. It was like you were in a desert or a third world or whatever.
In the coming days, arrangements were made for the 400 residents displaced from the retirement home.
They put us on the buses, went to Washington, and when we got there, man, they just had everything for us.
And I said, goodbye. I ain't going, because I got family here.
Life-shattering events like Hurricane Katrina often bring out the worst in people. Larry Westbrook says that's not what happened here.
Everybody was altruistic. They was, come on in, let's go.
In the following months, the retirement home's future was decided. A new one needed to be built, and this one needed to be torn down. Demolition Day was set for October 25th, 2008.
I watched it. I was right there by the gate, there, that fence.
3, 2, 1, go.
Boom, boom, boom. It sounded like World War III, The only thing was standing, an elevator. Yeah, that elevator was still standing.
The retirement home veterans in D.C. stayed up to date on the rebuilding process. They were even consulted on the layout. And when they finally took that chartered flight to Gulfport, it was like coming home from deployment, they said.
And everyone was along the road waving to us, welcome home, welcome home. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. And I just thank the Lord. I mean, gee, it was incredible.
I'd stay here under any circumstances.
Really?
I just wouldn't move out unless they carried me out.
I felt a great sense of relief. And I said, well, I don't have to move anymore. I don't have to move anymore.
You're back home.
I'm back home.
Volunteers were the key to South Mississippi's recovery from Hurricane Katrina, especially here in Long Beach. More than 1 million people came to the coast in the years following to help residents clean up, rebuild, and have a meal to eat each day. Hundreds of faith-based groups made up the backbone of the volunteer relief effort, aided by countless other organizations providing support. Katrina wiped out the Boys and Girls Club here in Pass Christian, but the children of the Pass found a hero in the country of Qatar. It donated $5 million to build this new 28,000 square foot facility with a game room, computer lab, 4 learning centers, and a commercial kitchen. Across the entire Gulf Coast region, the people of Qatar invested $100 million for Katrina recovery, $30 million of that going to South Mississippi. The storm also caused major disruptions for students and schools. What's now the Pascagoula-Gaucher School District faced millions in damages. As Austin Johnson shows us, some who were students when Katrina hit now find themselves leading the next generation.
My graduating class who went through some really severe trauma on that day. We lost classmates that day.
Sarah Busby, a senior at Pascagoula High School when Katrina's storm surge flooded 90% of the city, damaging 11 schools and destroying 2. School was closed for 6 weeks, and Busby says the return was a sight she won't forget.
It was similar to what you would think of a war zone. Even when students returned October 6th, they were returning living on friends' couches, living in FEMA trailers together.
That first day really wasn't even about education. It was more like, oh, you made it. Oh, you're still here. Oh, you didn't move away. Oh my God, my friends are still here. Like everyone's safe.
After the water receded, a Red Cross shelter FEMA site erected at Pascagoula High School and a National Guard headquarters at Gaucher High School.
That's when it really hit home that I started thinking about the school and the education side of it. They were giving out water, some necessities, water, MREs, food items.
Our gymnasium was turned into a huge refuge-like center that we all shopped in for clothes.
Jacob Peden, now the assistant high school principal, was a freshman 2 weeks into his high school journey.
There was anxiety, we were anxious, we were excited.
But that quickly changed on August 29, 2005. Peden recalled walking miles to the high school for food. Peden didn't know it at the time, but he would soon view school as a vacation.
And you weren't at home seeing all the things you had lost and contemplating. It was kind of an escape from your own mind. You got to go to school, you got to see your friends, you got to visit, you got to connect with teachers and with administrators.
Belinda Damon, now the superintendent of elementary education, was principal at Cherokee Elementary. Despite the schools being closed, she was one of many district employees working to plan for what came next.
Everybody was kind of learning as they went, and we all worked together as a team, as leadership, to figure out exactly what needed to happen so that our schools were prepared when we were ready to open back up.
Damages to resources topped $27 million. Among that, $832,000 in library books, $491,000 in textbooks, and $800,000 in vehicles. But 2 decades later, Damon realizes the storm didn't break the school district.
Finally, 20 years later, seeing people, their houses are being built all over the place and businesses are coming back and all of those things, and you're seeing that vibrant Pascagoula happen again.
Kind of brought a lot of families closer, and I think it did that with my graduating class. It brought us closer.
Downtown Gulfport saw major devastation in the days following Hurricane Katrina, with neighborhoods leveled and industrial sites destroyed, including here at the Port of Gulfport, once again facing the wrath of a natural disaster. Parker Boyd takes us through the aftermath and what led to the success of the port that we know today.
Hurricane Katrina pushed up to 28 feet of water through the port and into surrounding areas.
Devastating, absolutely devastating.
The surge not only destroyed homes, but also washed up debris, including lots of chicken from the Port of Gulfport's freezers. Those chickens rotting in the sweltering sun. creating a horrific smell.
It was terrible, and I don't know how many days it took for them to actually clean it up.
The port's Chief Operations Officer Sean Meyer says Katrina's winds and storm surge wiped out much of the port and its cargo, like those chickens pushed into West Gulfport. He says the port has invested billions of dollars to rebuild, expand, and fortify against storms. That includes new drainage systems and flood walls to keep water out of the port.
There's so many people and so many companies that make their living off this port. The old port was full of a bunch of old warehouses. It needed a lot of money. It was small. It was to its capacity. Now we have doubled, if not tripled, the capacity.
The port has become an innovation hub, adding the Roger F. Wicker Center and Ocean Aero. All the growth bringing additional jobs that Meyer says is one of the biggest comebacks from Katrina. Another is all the port has done and is doing to prepare for future storms.
We do put plans together to help try to keep the debris and everything out. All the state, local police, everything, and the city of Gulfport to try to come up with a plan. What's the best thing we can do to not repeat the lessons that we learned from Katrina?
Longtime residents say memories of the damage and smells from Katrina still linger, but so does their hope for a stronger Gulfport.
Key infrastructure points along the coast also took a massive hit. Hurricane Katrina's tidal surge wiped out parts of Highway 90 along with the Biloxi Ocean Springs Bridge. Just 2 years later, a new bridge was partially opened, once again linking Harrison and Jackson counties. Today, it also serves as a scenic pathway for walkers, runners, and cyclers. The Bay St. Louis Bridge also becoming a casualty of Katrina. The storm surge and winds causing significant damage to the structure, making it impassable. It was later rebuilt and reopened in November 2007, once again reuniting commuters in Pass Christian and Bay St. Louis. These days, banking transactions are at our fingertips with smartphones and online apps, but it was a much different world 20 years ago. As Bill Snyder shows us, Katrina withdrew major pieces of the area's financial structure.
Hancock Bank CEO John Hairston shares a story of how Katrina swept in and he and others tried to sweep a path for those storm victims.
By Monday afternoon, the surge had come back and there were community members and some of our own employees who had been washed out of their homes and were holding on to trees or light poles or whatever just to save their own lives. So by Monday afternoon, I was here at the building, standing in this spot when the first few people came walking up, and their neighborhoods were gone, and they had no refuge to go to. And as I was looking at their feet, the thought crossed my mind: I've got to sweep a path so people can, because there'll be more that'll be walking to the building, and all of our brooms were gone. And so there was an IT network specialist that was also here. And his name is Tom, and Tom walked up to me on this spot, and he had said, "John, what do you need? What can I do to help?" I said, "Tom, right now, I just need a broom." He said, "I got it." And so Tom went and found this palm frond, and he put duct tape around it, and this is what we use, taking turns, to sweep that path right? Yeah. Into the first floor of the building and all the way out to the street.
This is what the house looked like.
In Biloxi, People's Bank CEO Cheva Sweatman was watching Katrina's surge destroy his home, so he set up shop at the Biloxi branch, got in his Hummer, and went to work.
As it kept going in, when it hit the bottom step, I was out of there, and I took the Hummer with me. You can see right here the duct tape works real good on a Hummer. What I did is I got with the Hummer, and along the railroad tracks, starting around Porter Avenue, I'd go up on and I'd ride the railroad tracks for about 2 or 3. There weren't any trains going through, and I didn't have any problem getting, because I had one of the few Hummers that was on the coast. People don't realize when the cell towers went down, the credit cards went down. So it was a cash business for everybody. If you weren't able to use an ATM, the next thing that would happen was, well, we would cash you a check if you were a People's Bank customer, and if you'd lost your ID, you know, it didn't matter. We'd cash it for you. That was a risk we were going to take.
At Keesler Federal Credit Union, longtime employees Pam Belk, Shannon Cooper, and Virginia Hilton were knee-deep and line-deep in recovery efforts as well.
One of our regional directors was able to get a hold of me by text and, hey, can you come down and help me look at this branch, see if it's even here? And of course, when we got there, it wasn't. It was gone. The safe was buried in the mud, and we found the one thing that was still up was the American flag.
It was just making sure that we could get individuals what they needed. We were handing out water for people that were coming through the drive-through. Of course, we had to limit what we could allow them to withdraw so we could share between everyone.
I was the runner for the umbrellas and the water and ice, kind of assisting people, keeping them kind of calm and cool while they're waiting. You could only get so much in funds. A couple $100 is the max they were allowed to have. By day 3, we started to mobilize a little bit more, and we decided to start putting somewhat of a call center back together.
And much like the Hancock Bank fountain, the coast banking industry flowed again and cashed in on a renewed coast economy.
One of the first ways people around the country got perspective on just how devastating Katrina truly was from aerial views from WLBT's helicopter Skycopter 3. Wilson Stribling takes you back to those days after Katrina in the air.
It's about 10:30 in the morning. Take a look at some of these cars behind me.
In the hours after Katrina, we could see only what news crews on the ground could get to. We knew it was bad, but not until Skycopter showed us from the air did we know how terribly bad.
This was kind of the shopping area of Bay St. Louis. Hauled some medical supplies and medicine.
Coit Bailey was flying the chopper and telling us and the world what we were looking at.
I believe that's the President Casino.
It was in front of the Broadwater.
That's correct.
So it picked up, that casino is from the water. It was lifted up by the storm surge, we presume, and up underneath there is part of the Holiday Inn.
That's correct.
Unbelievable.
And it really was just me and Joe flying through here, trying to pick out landmarks, talking back and forth, saying, wait, that looks like the Isle of Capri. When we flew in over the Gulfport Airport, we were just absolutely blown away.
The surge must have been over the top of those trees because there was no way to get that boat back in there unless you picked it up and dropped it in.
Skycopter went back every day for about the next 2 weeks.
If you remember the aquarium, that's the aquarium right there that was in the port of Gulfport. That was Highway 90. All the bridges are gone. It's just hard to imagine anything being much worse than this.
The powerful force of Hurricane Katrina could be felt across the state as it moved inland, with winds ravaging millions of trees and destroying hundreds of buildings along the way. Charles Harrington gives us a look at the impact felt in the Pine Belt region.
Many trees in South Mississippi show the effects of Hurricane Katrina. If you look up occasionally, you can see those effects. Just ask Lauren Erickson with the Mississippi Forestry Commission.
You can see the bend, and it was blowing and it was adjusting itself during the storm, and then it just stopped and it just grew that way. So you get a lot of these recurve trees.
And these trees were the lucky ones. Many others in South Mississippi weren't so lucky when Katrina came calling.
It killed approximately 54 million trees. The timber industry was hit hardest. Obviously, a lot of urban trees were affected, but hardwoods were damaged more than pines because pines are more flexible. Hardwoods, even though they survived, were damaged more because they're not as flexible.
Erickson says the value of the harvestable timber lost was around $900 million. 80% of that loss took place in a 10-county area.
There was a glut on the market and the price was dropped because of it. You just couldn't give away pine logs at that point, I've been told, at many of the mills. A lot of mills increased their production, but only 35% of the timber was salvaged.
So 20 years later, overall, how is Mississippi doing in bringing back our trees?
It's not going to be exactly the same, and you're not going to get the same canopy cover, But people have done a lot, and in this agency in particular, through the state, and U.S. Forest Service has done a ton.
Erickson says Katrina also damaged an estimated 521 million trees statewide.
Coast residents may remember another hotspot for tourists in Harrison County, marine life. This is its new location with a new identity in Gulfport. The original facility made it through Hurricane Camille, but it was Hurricane Katrina that eventually closed the doors. As Mackenzie Martin reports, what came from the destruction of marine life is a story of new life and resilience.
I got to the beach and I looked at it and it was gone. And that's where it dawned on me that we are in trouble.
Moby Salongi is the president of the Institute for Marine Mammal Studies, but 20 years ago, he was the president of Marine Life, located on Highway 90 right off the Gulf. Marine Life, known for its entertainment shows of sea lions and dolphins, was the #1 attraction on the Gulf Coast.
Nobody had a boat to go and see dolphins, so they constructed a facility so they could bring nature close to them.
Marine Life was open year-round, with peak season being in the summer as kids enjoyed summer break. It was during that peak season in August of 2005 when the coast started to learn of a possible hurricane heading straight towards the coast.
So far, here's the eye of the storm, now about 197 miles south of the Biloxi.
And in its path, Marine Life. Salongi says they prepared for Hurricane Katrina just like they did for the other storms.
We had gone through these drills before. We would move some of the animals. The sea lions would be put on trucks and kept away, and then we come back and everything, of course, it'd take days to clean up, but everything went back to normal. But Katrina was different.
Salongi says most animals were moved to safe areas, but the 30-foot-high tank holding 8 dolphins proved to be a special challenge. It had a history of standing strong, lasting through Hurricane Camille in 1969.
We said, well, even if there's a storm that comes in, we'll get 4 or 5 feet of water, we'll come back and, get back in line. But the tidal wave, the 8 dolphins that were left in that huge tank got swept away. And of course, we thought they were all gone, they're dead, it's finished.
It was 13 days later that the Marine Life crew went into the Gulf to search for these dolphins. Amid the heartbreak that Hurricane Katrina left, a story of hope emerged as the missing dolphins were found, traveling together as a family.
And I'm looking, oh my God, look at that, there's some dolphins, let's check it out. We get the boat out there and boom, they're all together.
After the successful rescue mission, it was time to cope with the fact that Marine Life was destroyed. Salongi says that despite the reality of the aftermath, this was not the time to dwell on what once was, but rather time to envision the future.
I had the feeling that, okay, this is gone. No, I've been through life. I've been in all sorts of circumstances and through wars, through others. We'll move on. And so from that day onwards, we kept on going.
As IMMS was built, the facility's mission became rehabilitating animals.
After Katrina, my focus changed. Our focus has been on more science, more research, more conservation.
While Marine Life is no longer standing, Salongi says there are pieces of the major tourist attraction in IMMS, as Marine Life evolved into what is now located off of Cowan-Lorraine Road.
Out of the devastation of Hurricane Katrina came not only stories of survival, but powerful expressions of hope and healing. From carved trees in multiple cities to mosaics and quilts that piece together the past, and Katrina's legacy lives on through art. Jennifer Lott shows us how beauty rose from the rubble.
Well, I think this project here represents the willingness of Biloxi to come in after a storm and rebuild. And it's like they were dealt a bad deal with the surge that came in here and killed these trees, and to sit there and turn them back into something else. It's like if you're given lemons, make lemonade.
That's chainsaw artist Marlon Miller, nearly 20 years ago after he traveled to the Mississippi coast from Florida to carve these trees.
All these cars started coming in, people taking pictures and cars honking.
Trees left behind by Katrina's storm surge have become towering pieces of art, sentinels of survival. created by Miller and other artists, Dayton Scoggins and Dale Lewis.
We spent about 3 years on and off and added about 50 sculptures from, I guess, Pascagoula all the way to Waveland.
The trees have weathered over the years, but their message lives on. A reminder of what we lost and what we still have.
It really feels like maybe I gave those old trees another breath of life.
Inside Waveland's Ground Zero Hurricane Museum, the story is stitched together in the Katrina Quilts exhibit. Every year, the museum draws around 5,000 visitors from across the world.
This is probably one of our most favorite rooms that our visitors come to see.
Artist Solveig Wells picked up the pieces, torn scraps left in Katrina's wake, parts of homes, clothing, memories, and turned them into 55 lap quilts now on display, a patchwork of grief and healing.
You can turn the quilt over, and in her handwriting, she says that it's her who made it, the date, and what is the theme behind that quilt. She talked about natural disasters, but she also then talked about hope and family and community. And that's kind of what this whole museum's about, that it's really more about resiliency and the sense of community that happens when everybody pulls together.
Pascagoula's Beach Park, a reminder of the beauty and danger of the waves. Mosaic waves ripple at the base of the bridge connecting Ocean Springs and Biloxi. Along the Bay St. Louis Bridge, shrimp boats are etched in the concrete. These works retell, reshape, and reclaim the story of the storm, reminding us that even when nature breaks us down, the human spirit can rebuild beautifully.
This was really tough. You know, we lost homes. People didn't come back, but community rallied. Where there's valleys, there's hills. Where there's destruction, there's rebirth.
For decades, WLOX has been the go-to source for information along the Gulf Coast. And when Hurricane Katrina came barreling toward South Mississippi, we were with you before, during, and after the storm. WLOX Chief Meteorologist Eric Johnson sat down with our former Chief Meteorologist, who played a crucial role in getting information out to the community.
150 to perhaps up to 175 miles per hour. That is wind gust.
You and the weather team had to be in this building telling everybody what was going on.
Everybody in the newsroom was in this building. I don't want to give our credit just to us. Think of the guys in the newsroom.
In the days leading up to Katrina, the news and weather team worked tirelessly to get the word out. But that job became even more challenging as Katrina roared ashore.
We're kind of...
Okay.
Okay,
it's time to go.
Katrina's winds toppled one of the broadcast towers located on the front lawn of the studio. But that was just the beginning of the struggles they would face. The storm began ripping the roof off the newsroom. There was a frantic rush to get every piece of equipment they could to create a temporary studio set up in the sturdiest part of the building. That is where former Chief Meteorologist Mike Reeder and the rest of the team continued to broadcast throughout the storm.
I had this guy here from Weather Central at the time. They were actually training us on some radar feature. And he had a laptop. And he was the only source of information in this building.
Zoom out off that a little bit, guys, so we can show you so we can show you what we're working with here. I don't think people appreciate it. That's the man, that's Joe. It's his, he's a Weather Central guy. He's keeping us up to date and keeping us informed.
So it came up with a radar. It wasn't Slidell. Slidell was gone. But I think it was Mobile. So we're in there. I told him, I said, look, you just get there and you manipulate. I'll get the pencil and I'll talk about what I'm looking at. And that's how we did it.
After the storm passed, the real work began.
Kids are the people that worked here, and I got the management. I said, look, if I put these guys to work cleaning this place up, will you pay them? They said, yeah, we'll pay them. So I got me a crew, a cleanup crew, and we cleaned up. Remember, the roof went off in the newsroom. Didn't completely come up, but the water went through, and they had that suspended ceiling. It fell down, and it was just a mess.
WLOX became a critical source of information for residents in the days immediately following Katrina.
I mean, and we had water. At that time, water was kind of rare. So people would come in and they would give us information. We would give them a plate of food and some water and send them back out.
This is Hancock EMA Director Brian Adams.
Brian, this is Dave Vinson at WLOX TV.
Broadcasting 24/7 for nearly 2 weeks straight while equipment was repaired. Everyone at the station had some type of storm damage at home, and 13 lost everything.
But you know what? They came to work. They lived here. They slept here. They ate here. They came to work and they plugged away while they were trying to get their life back together instead of saying, oh no, I lost everything, I got to get out. They didn't do that. And that, to me, I admire those people more than, almost anything.
This neighborhood here on Seal Avenue in Biloxi is one of many representations of the strength seen in the aftermath of chaos. The memories may stay, but 20 years later, there's rebirth. And the next time any storm begins to linger in our coastal waters, remember, our WLOX First Alert weather team, along with our family of Gray stations across the state, will be there with you every step of the way, working to protect our communities.
Katrina20, the storm that changed everything.
Has been sponsored by Husband Roofing and Contracting. When a storm strikes, trust Husband Roofing and Contracting. We don't just build roofs, we build communities. For a roof that lasts, your roof deserves a good husband.